All right, guys. So today I'm going to talk about a very groundbreaking point that not many people talk about, and this is going to be a very sophisticated conversation and discussion. But it's the concept of not all knowledge is equal. What do I mean? Well, because people think that more knowledge is better, right? And I think at a time, when you're surrounded by a bunch of information, especially when you have internet access to everywhere, you have your phone, you have the internet, we have access to almost too much information, and we don't know what's right or what's wrong, right? So like when we're trying to understand like who's the true expert in the fitness industry, like who is a true expert in that, and who's the true expert in like language learning. Like if you watch like a bunch of language learning gurus, like which one is a true guru? If you listen to like a bunch of fitness influencers or like fitness people, it's like which guru is like the true guru? Which one actually knows what they're talking about? Like which one's the true expert? And I think a lot of it has to come down to avoiding wrong information rather than trying to learn a quantity of information. Knowledge is not about the amount of quantity, it's the quality of it, right? Because a little bit of the right impactful knowledge that can change someone's life is way more valuable than knowing a bunch of arbitrary theoretical knowledge that doesn't apply to anything. So this is what I ended up realizing, and I'm like 21, right? And I think this is like very powerful because not all knowledge is equal, guys. And you shouldn't try to learn virtually everything out there, because a lot of information out there is actually kind of useless, So, for example, I can apply this to like the fitness and language learning lens, but like, let's say for fitness, right? I'm able to get my clients some of the best results in the fitness industry. When clients work with me, like when I train them in person or like when I train them online, my clients grow like with my methods. It was not really my method, it's just the correct method, but everyone doesn't know about it, so that's why like it gets crazy results. It's not my method at all, it's just the correct one that's grounded in rigorous science, but everyone doesn't know about it. So but they end up getting like 8 pounds of muscle in like a month, 6 weeks, and 8 to 10 pounds of muscle in like 4 to 6 weeks is very drastic results. Like most coaches in the fitness industry cannot achieve those results for normal people, right? And I'm doing this for normal people, not people that are on like drugs, right? Now, how come I'm able to get these people these results? It's because of my quality of knowledge. I have a very good understanding of basic exercise principles that's going to move the needle in someone when it comes to results. So it's about having quality knowledge, not quantity knowledge. Because here's the thing. People like Mike Israetel, like he has a PhD. Okay, sure, he knows a lot of things about exercise, but he won't get the same results as I can. Because he does not have the right knowledge. You see, when you go to these universities and you get a PhD, it's like, and you get education from these institutions, right? They teach you a bunch of unnecessary, arbitrary knowledge that doesn't actually matter, in the sense that like it doesn't really apply to practical things. It's not practical. There's a difference between theoretical knowledge and practical knowledge, right? This is why I get my information from Dr. Doug McGuff and experts. Like these are true experts, right? So, I study people like Drew Bay that are in the HIIT community. I study people like Dr. Doug McGuff. These are like true experts in the field, right? And the reason why I know is because they're able to condense all the knowledge they know about medical science and condense it to core, principles of strength training. And I basically just learned the core principles and understand why one set is enough to reach muscle, is enough for like a lot of growth. Like people think like, oh, I go to the gym like once per week. And people are like, wait, what? How? People think you gotta go 5 times per week. It's like, no, I gain muscle once per week. Like a lot. And they're like, wait, what? How is that possible? It's like, well, you gotta know a little bit of knowledge. You gotta know the right knowledge. So it's not about how much knowledge you know, it's about knowing the right impactful knowledge that's gonna change someone's life. And just by me studying the principles that people like Dr. Doug McGuff teaches makes me more of an expert than Mike Israetel. Even though Dr. Mike Israetel is a doctor and he has a PhD, he gets a lot of things. He gets some things wrong about exercise. And he specifically gets the core principles wrong, right? Because he doesn't understand the overarching view of exercise the same way Dr. Doug McGuff does. So which doctor should I trust? Should I trust Dr. Doug McGuff or should I trust Dr. Mike Israetel? Well, if you want to be able to trust which one's more accurate, you have to decipher and understand each perspective. So you have to go all in on Dr. Doug McGuff, understand everything he says, all the principles, and then you try to decipher Mike Israetel. And if you see basically inconsistencies in Mike Israetel's point of view, and you see that, okay, this guy, he doesn't actually understand Hammond Size principle. Because I'm able to do this, right? This is how I know. This is how I know who the true expert is. I listen to someone like Drew Bayer or Dr. Doug McGuff, and I'm like, this guy says one set of failure is enough. Because of Henneman Size principle, basically motor unit recruitment, right? Motor units are recruited from slow twitch to fast twitch. And then you basically have Mike Israetel here, but you can do periodization and high volume training. It's like, why do you need high volume? When you understand Dr. Doug McGuff's principles, this periodization and high volume bullshit doesn't even matter. It literally doesn't make any sense. So you can see holes in Mike Israetel's knowledge. Even though he has a PhD, even though he has a lot of knowledge, he's lacking the fundamental knowledge of Dr. Doug McGuff. So that's why I'm going to go with Dr. Doug McGuff over Dr. Mike Israetel. So this is who I know is the true expert. Because I try to understand both views in the perspectives, and I basically apply myself. Because I applied Mike Israetel's training, completely got trashed, okay? Very little results. I applied Dr. Doug McGuff's principles, one set to failure, training once or twice per week, boom, instant results. So now I know. And it makes sense. Dr. Doug McGuff's principles makes the most logical sense of any fitness ever. The moment I discovered HIIT principles, high intensity strength training principles, I never had any other questions about exercise ever again. After that, all the mysteries about exercise, about functional training and about why athletes perform better at this, and why do you need only one set? How do you actually grow muscle? What are the molecular, pathways in the body that activate muscle? What nutrition? All of it, all the questions I had, all got answered in a very logical, evidence-based way when I listened to Dr. Doug McGuff. So I'm gonna listen to him. And of course, I applied his knowledge to other people with my clients with my own experience, and I can prove it and be like, yo, this is correct. This is the truth. So true experts are able to take a lot of information and they're able to condense it down to impactful knowledge that's gonna be applicable for someone. This is a true expert. It's not about knowing as much information as possible. It's about avoiding the wrong information. So me listening to Dr. Mike Israetel, even though it's you can take his perspective into account, a lot of the knowledge that he says is inaccurate. And I can prove that with this person's principles and my experience of me applying HIIT principles. So this is exercise. Now let's talk about language learning, right? Because I have a thing to say about this. So I basically self-taught myself French and Japanese from zero, right? I'm able to read literary works in Japanese, so I can basically watch anime without subtitles. I'm able to speak fluently. I'm able to read hard literature in the language. And with French, I'm able to basically go to France, talk to anyone, understand 100% of what people are saying, and actually communicate and engage in French culture, French people. So I've done this all by myself by using certain methods, right? Now, how come I was able to do these, self-teach myself 2 languages at a rapid rate? And it had to come down to the same principle. Learning the right impactful knowledge that's going to actually move the needle in your progress, in results. Okay? So for example, my grandpa is actually a world-renowned linguist. His name is Masayoshi Shibatani. He was friends with Stephen Krashen. And Stephen Krashen is still alive. So I want to actually meet up with him. And probably he'll I think he's in California. So I'm gonna have to go to California. But if I email Stephen Krashen hey, I'm the grandson of Masayoshi Shibatani, I would actually be glad to basically tell Krashen about my experience with languages. And I think he would find them interesting. But anyway, my grandpa is a world-renowned linguist, right? He knows everything about languages. He knows the grammar, the syntax. He knows a lot about language. He knows a lot about what language is, but he does not have a lot of knowledge when it comes to knowing how to actually learn one. So what I realized is my grandpa knows a lot of knowledge. He has a lot of knowledge about language, and I have a lot of knowledge about how to learn a language. You guys see the difference? I'm more qualified to teach language learning to someone that wants to learn Japanese from scratch than my grandpa. Because even though my grandpa's a linguist, he spends all his life as a scholar dedicated to learning the why and mechanisms of little grammar and patterns of, he's trying to study linguistics. He's not studying languages. See, my grandpa's an expert at linguistics. He's not an expert at language acquisition and knowing how to actually apply it to actually learn a language. So this is the separation, right? Like, even though my grandpa spends his entire life writing papers about linguistics, I'm still more qualified to teach someone how to learn language because I know a little bit of knowledge, impactful knowledge that's actually going to move the needle in someone's progress than my grandpa. So I'm able to actually teach someone how to learn language way faster and way more effectively, and I'm more qualified to teach someone how to learn language because I've done it myself and I know how to do it. Because I know practical knowledge. I know the impactful practical knowledge, not this theoretical knowledge. See, like Dr. Mike Israetel, my grandpa, that's a linguist, they know a ton of theoretical knowledge. And that's the problem with institutions like universities, is they teach you a lot of theoretical knowledge, but they do not teach you how to do practical knowledge. They don't teach you impactful, lethal knowledge that's going to actually dramatically change someone's life. Like the little bit of information I give to someone with fitness or language learning can literally change their life. Things like just 2 words, just go immersion language and do Anki. Like just those 2 words alone, that's gonna change someone's the way someone learns languages, right? Just like the little bit of information I give them about these things, it dramatically changes the way they approach everything. So that's why not all knowledge is equal. Just because you know a lot of knowledge does not mean that that knowledge is useful and it's impactful. So that's why for me, I'm here to learn just the impactful practical knowledge and avoid a bunch of unnecessary knowledge that's not gonna really contribute to anything. So that's the thing, guys. You want to learn knowledge that's impactful, that's lethal, and that's going to actually get someone results. Now, I'm not against going to get a PhD and learning the why and the theoretical behind why of science. Here's the thing: when it comes to science, it's important to understand the why, but when you delve too much into the why, you don't learn the how. See, I'm trying to learn about the knowledge of how, right? I don't need to learn the why yet. Yes, I do think the why is important to understand why HIIT training works, why, learning a language like this works. It's useful to understand the why, but it's you got to first understand the how first. And I think a lot of people spend too much of the time learning the why of things and not the how. So this is what makes me an undeniable expert in multiple fields, is because I actually learned the how. I learned a little bit of knowledge that's going to actually move the needle on someone, whether it be fitness or language learning. So not all knowledge is equal. That's the thing. Not all knowledge is equal. It's not the same at all. And I know this now, because someone can know a lot of knowledge, but they don't know the right knowledge, So it's about avoiding a bunch of garbage and false rumors in the industry. It's about avoiding all that and learning the correct knowledge. So it's not about quantity, it's about quality. So just remember that, guys.